Hello everybody, welcome to episode 2 of Arcane Season 2. As you can tell, same shirt, just went to the bathroom, washed my face, got a bit of fresh air, and I want to watch episode 2 right away, so let's get into it. I imagine this is going to be the Zaun side of things, the fallout of that, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Let's do it. Oh, and just a reminder again, if you want to see the next episode early, you can check that out on Patreon. Full length, also on Patreon. Oh boy, don't you guys love Arcane?
Well, it's all going to shit. Chem barons warring for control of the lanes. Wannabe street thugs squabbling over scraps. Just like when Vander shoved off. Except this time, you aren't here to put it all back together, 'cause how could someone put all those holes in you? I used to say I could fix anything. Before I broke everything. Now it's so quiet. What am I supposed to do with that?
Have you had enough?
Wow. Those are the words that he heard before he rose up. Holy shit. The way that she describes everything being so quiet and how maddening that is. Ah, Sevika. Never mind. Wow. Oh, wow. Look at this. I was gonna, you know what? I was gonna say that reminds me of Powder in episode 1, seeing everyone fight in front of her. Look at that. Oh my god, her eyes. It's left a vacuum. Total anarchy. Lawlessness. And she just, none of it matters. Oh my god. So jaded.
Yep, that's me. You ever need to curse a sibling or a family or a society?
Use me. Yeah. Oh my god. You can never accuse Arcane lyrics of being too subtextual. She's incredibly jaded. There's the voice acting is really great too. It's almost like she's faking the old enthusiasm and playfulness that she used to have. It makes sense. There's a power vacuum. 3, the most important man, and then 2 others are gone. So there's left scrambling for the chair, metaphorically and literally. Oh, whoa.
I know you're all fantasizing about sawing each other's heads off, so I'm gonna get right to it. These turf wars have to stop.
God, the character designs.
Topside is the real enemy. Us killing each other is playing right into their hands.
We give them Jinx. That's all they really want.
Ah.
Hand over our people.
That's so good. That's so good for Sevika. Her and Jinx never saw eye to eye, but she identified with her. She had problems with her father. she saw a bit of herself in her. They both were right there with Silco. They're both suffering from his loss, I'm sure, in different ways. But is she going to be able to be... she's reluctant to hand Jinx over. So their dynamic is definitely one that's got tons of potential.
I can't believe you're dead, and I'm still mopping up your messes.
Jeez, lady, you crazy. Talking to dead people.
You here to finish me off?
Same time every day. Big baby couldn't do it himself.
This is something they have in common. In one way or another, they're bonding over. Oh,
Couldn't do
wow.
much himself. About now, he'd have me all over the lanes, running his collections,
Building his weapons,
making his deals.
exploding his enemies.
Great shot.
He dips out, the whole world flips over.
Just like Vander. But there's no monolithic figurehead this time. Silco was there to pick up the pieces to some degree or another after Vander, but no one's here now.
To do now?
Watch it all burn.
She doesn't care. There's a shot just like that in Season 1, Episode 1, I think, where she's fumbling through the trash. I'm pretty sure. Powder fumbles through the trash.
Victor. Victor. Victor.
Oh boy.
Jeez.
Holy shit.
Victor? What am I? You're alive. You're alive. You must be cold. Cold? No, I don't think so.
This is like a modulator.
A charge, a potential
There's like a modulator on his voice.
impulse, the hexcore.
Victor, it saved you. Somehow it adapted to your injuries, changing and evolving. It was as if it was connected to you. Using the notes from your
Whoa.
recorded everything. There are still
Whoa.
so many questions, but
I was supposed to die. You promised to destroy the hexcore.
no. Don't you see? Heimerdinger was wrong. We were wrong. It's not as bad as
It killed Sky, Jace. She had such dreams.
Oh my god.
we'll make this right. Together.
Oh man.
I must say goodbye to this place now. To you.
Goodbye. Victor, you're my partner.
Our paths diverged long ago. It was affection that held us together.
He's disconnected in some way.
You think it's so easy? To turn your back while your whole city looks to you for salvation? To cling to principles while your best friend bleeds out in your arms? I never asked for this!
Goodbye, Jace.
I never asked for this. Oh, that's heartbreaking.
There's so many of them.
It's all the fighting. We're gonna have capacity issues soon. And there's the security risk.
We're not turning people away.
He's got a voice. Oh, that's adorable. Oh man, that reminds me of when he made the little thing for the kid in the alleyway. That's why he got into all this in the first place.
Oh, this is quite troubling.
Shimmer?
That tree means so much. It's our food, fresh air. We built our whole identity around it.
I have seen something of this nature before.
I can't really tell what that is. Kind of looks similar to Shimmer. Oh. Oh my god. Oh my god. I just want, like... Heimerdinger and Echo are my only source of happiness in this show. That was nice. It's probably the only happy scene, or funny scene we'll have in the entire show.
Professor! Yes, of course! What the devil's
Whoa.
gotten into you? This is my new pupil, Echo. Echo, my former pupil, Jace. Oh, pish-posh, like you've never done it. Were you?
It was like that. Like his and Victor's thing in episode 3.
Echo. Said with the hexcore, but
Oh, the hexcore. Okay.
Deep in the underground.
Echo's home is a marvelous place.
Yeah.
Where's Victor?
Oh, it's... I forget his name, but from episode 1. Yeah. What is Victor gonna be doing here? Look at this. Oh my gosh. Almost priest-like. Look at that imagery. I mean, there is a power vacuum. Oh boy. Oh no. Oh my god. Crazy. Crazy who's searching her out in the same way they were searched out in the first couple episodes of the series. Clagger. You know, I know she made her choice, and I know, for all intents and purposes, she is, but looking at scenes like this make me really wonder, is Powder actually gone? But, like, if Vi were to see this, it would... I don't know. Would she actually be able to follow through with it, is my question. She is Jinx. But for Vi's perspective, if she were to see what she's... her in this state,
It's all clear.
I don't know that she'd be able to follow through. And this is like episode 2, I think. This is like what Marcus did in episode 2. I think it was episode 2, where he searched the bar for them, and they hid away. And then they hid successfully, they didn't find them, and then the enforcers went away. This is very similar.
Me? I'm the kind of guy who likes to get in close.
It's always me. Whether
It's
I'm
always
pulling a
me.
pin or not, everyone who gets close to me dies. Wanna know the real kicker? You're the kind of guy who likes to get in close.
Sevika! Raw. Oh man. I kind of fucking love them together. I love Jinx, man. She gave her... My God. This show is so goddamn stylish, but look at this.
Tell me, who's a funny-looking rat now?
Fancy meeting you here. You could have just let me eat it.
Haven't I done you enough favors? I didn't ask you for this.
It was something I could fix.
You got that
Oh, it was something I could fix.
planning.
Everyone dies around her. Everything breaks around her. Everything breaks, so she needs to fix something. They're licking each other's wounds, like they're bonding out of necessity because of mutual pain. But I think they're going to be essential for each other. Sevika and Jinx. What a scene! Oh, look at this. I have chills.
Nothing personal, friend. We just got needs we can't ignore.
So much senseless pain.
Healed him? Gotten rid of the effects of Shimmer? Oh my God. There was a power vacuum in the Undercity in Zaun. I think he's gonna fill it immediately.
He did not suffer anymore.
What's the reason they all wanted Shimmer in the first place, but without... What has happened to him? Oh, my... Singed? Oh, what in the Frankenstein? Oh, the husk. What? That's it? That was so quick. Oh, that went by so fast. I thought there was another 15 minutes. Okay. Wow. So that's episode 2. That went by extremely quick. Took me by surprise. My thoughts on the end, that immediately connected, is that Singed is putting together some sort of Frankenstein monster using the organs from the wolves he seemed to kill at the end of last episode, and the body that we saw at the end of last season. I'm thinking I should probably go back and, in between episodes or in between reactions, I should probably go back and check out that husk to look at it, because I think that's got something to do with this. I think organs are going to be transplanted. Something's going on there. Really fascinating tiny subplot that doesn't take a lot of screen time, but it's simmering in the background. Another great episode. What can I say? Like we expected, pretty much this is the Zaun equivalent of the first episode, to see the fallout of all that happened, the emotional fallout, the devastation after Silco's death. There is no big memorial. There is no procession. There is just a power vacuum needing to be filled. And while Sevika's doing her best as the others scramble for it, I think it is ripe to be filled by a savior, a messianic figure. What the hell happened to Victor? I think it's clear that to some significant extent, his emotions, his sentiment, in a lot of ways has been diluted or sucked out of him. There was very little warmth to his interactions with Jace. There was of course a little bit. There was some sentiment and longing and yearning in the goodbye, in his expressions, but a lot of it's gone, and he's speaking in such a detached way, a robotic way. When he speaks of affection, when he speaks of, I should have been dead, it feels like something's speaking through him almost. It's like something's been sucked out of him. It really feels like the Victor as we know him, the warm, sensitive person who had a heart of true gold, being led by his ambition, that may be gone, or at least very much buried, and replaced by this colder, sage-like, wise savior for those in Piltover, for those in Zaun, rather. Now, we have Huck, who is pretty much the personification of the Shimmer disease from overdose, basically. He spoke in episode, I believe it was 6, to Caitlin about how the use of Shimmer that Silco exploited all the way back when, it was perfectly tailored for those in the Undercity, because all they wanted was to be able to feel the power that they were deprived of their entire life, to make other people feel scared instead of them always being the one who was scared. But they had these negative side effects. Now, Victor seemingly healed all those side effects, the withdrawal, the sort of addict symptoms, and Huck looks really strong. His glasses are off. That may be a signifier that he can see properly. And he just all around looks a lot healthier than we've ever seen him. Stronger, physically. He does have little bits on his body that seem to indicate that he's been touched by the essence of the hexcore on his face and on his shoulder, and that is definitely an indication of something. But what's clear, the TLDR here, is that Victor has been, either his emotionality and humanity has been removed to an extent, or he's been replaced in some way, and he now has some sort of ability and power to heal others and replace it with something. Maybe I don't know if he's sort of taking onto himself their suffering, again, very Christ-like, very messianic, or if he's just taking it away, but I feel like it has to go somewhere. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but he is the answer to all the forgotten, all the downtrodden, and he could very quickly amass a following. While Sevika and Jinx are doing their own thing, not really replacing Silco at the moment, there is a power vacuum, and Victor could very easily fill it. It was heartbreaking to me for him to get out of that hexcore coffin, I don't know what to call it, and to immediately, his voice modulated, speak so differently to Jace, who is shocked at how matter-of-factly he just leaves. He says, I should have died, and then he goes. But what's notable to me is that Victor keeps seeing Skye. He's haunted by Skye. She's someone who always supported his dreams. We see prior to her death that she was saying that everything you do inspires me, and she was such a supporter of his path and his ambitions. And I think, having lost her, he's sort of latching on to her image as a guiding force of being like, you're supposed to be doing this. You removing this suffering is what you were put on this planet to do. This is your legacy, to do this. I think he's being led by what's interesting, because I don't think all the humans been sucked out of him. I still think there's Victor there, and I think that's indicated by his warped fixation on these visions of Skye. Seems to be guiding him to these misrepresentative things. Skye would not act this way. She would not be telling him all these things. And that vision of Skye acts quite differently from Skye. But Victor is so latched onto her image and what he wants her to be telling him, given his place, that he kind of sees what he wants to see, or what he needs to see. I am so fascinated with what's going on with Victor. It's incredibly painful and sorrowful and sad, But this is essentially generally the direction I thought he would go in, but not through this methodology. And it just has Jace scrambling, lost. He's used their dream essentially to build weapons. He must be so beside himself with pain at that, but he did make the choice. And now his one saving grace, he needed Victor to be alive. He is, but he's left him, and he is something different. And the imagery, man, it speaks for itself. It's incredibly religious, biblical. So many shots of him being this Christ-like figure, priest-like figure. It is, it's very obvious. It's not subtle at all. But man, is it effective and shocking. But we've talked about Victor, we've talked about Singed. Let's go back to the beginning, where in a beautiful, stunning reflection of the cold open in Season 1, Episode 3, we have Silco in the water, but this time it's his dead body essentially being embraced by Jinx, who mourns him, who grieves him, who feels so empty without him, and speaks of this horrible quiet. One of the most painful things that, speaking personally even, is when you're experiencing pain or anxiety or anything negative really, psychologically, quiet can be your worst enemy. Quiet, because all you fill that quiet with is horrible thoughts. And that's where Jinx is at. Her overall demeanor, I feel so sad for her, so sympathetic for her. And it's an interesting contrast because the perception of her in the first episode is as this heartless monster that needs to be taken down, and from their perspective, absolutely she needs to be taken down. But she has only started something that is now beyond her control. The attack is not being led by the attack, as far as I know, unless they're doing some really funky stuff with time, on the memorial was not led by Jinx. It's just a byproduct. And Jinx in this episode is such a juxtaposition to the monster she's built up to be in the first one. Now, she is a monster, she absolutely is, but it's this other side to her that we see as she is in these doldrums, grieving, just like Caitlyn. And the parallels, man, there was this one shot in the back alley from The Last Drop, or what formerly used to be The Last Drop, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe I'm mixing something up, but I believe that it was pretty much shot for shot a scene from Episode 1 where in that alleyway, Powder was going through some trash, or maybe she was looking through her pockets for the gems or something. Here we see Jinx, and Jinx walks down that alleyway. Just the parallels and seeing where we've been compared to where we are and how much has changed. It's very self-aware, and it's very, I don't know. It's only been, 11 episodes, but we've been through a journey, and these characters have been through everything. Anyway, the presentation of Jinx is beautiful, because the expressions, there's something in the eyes, that beautiful sequence as she's walking through, very artistic, very visually stunning. The music as well, as she's walking through all this carnage, in something that feels like a mirror reflection of that scene in Episode 1 where time seems to stop. Everyone's fighting around her, and she's looking at all this violence around her, and she just seems to be awakened to the worlds of this violence. Here, it's kind of similar in that she's in her own little realm with all this stuff around her, but she's detached from it. She's, as the song says, dead inside. Yeah, those lyrics, they're quite blunt. But her expressions, her eyes, there is a light that's gone out in them. There is just a jadedness in the expressions and the voice acting. She goes through the motions of all the things she used to say in Season 1, but without the enthusiasm. She makes a play at enthusiasm, but you can tell her heart's not in it. She doesn't feel that playful. Though there is a little bit of a relationship with that kid that she saved and that she's playing around with, and that's kind of sweet. But Sevika, likewise with Jinx, Sevika, man, what a kind of similar actually to the role that Mel has to play topside. She has to mediate everything. She has to deal with these power struggles, deal with all these different parties, kind of form a united front, and figure out the best path forward in the wake of this tragedy and all this uncertainty. Sevika's kind of reminding me of Mel as a counterpart politically for the Undercity, for Zaun. But regardless, very clear that she is adrift as well. Jinx had this intense, intimate, emotional connection to Silco, and I believe fully that they were soulmates. Not in the romantic sense, of course, but soulmates. You can be soulmates with someone who you aren't romantically tied to. I believe they were. Father and daughter. And Sevika obviously didn't have that sort of connection with Silco, but he was her right-hand woman. He didn't confide in her in the way he did with Jinx, but he trusted her with so much. She did so much for him, and she was loyal to him, and there was a warmth there. And she spoke in Season 1 to Silco about the fact that she never really saw eye to eye with her old man, a connection she has with Jinx in that moment. And so I think that just that little line shows us that Silco kind of maybe filled that bit of a role for her. They were close, undoubtedly. Not like Jinx and Silco, but they were close, and she is struggling. She's struggling. I think she's grieving. I think she is adrift. And so her and Jinx are licking their own wounds, and kind of find a bit of closeness, if you want to call it that, with one another. The scene, in spite of myself, I found myself being hyped as hell, of the scene of the two of them fighting off Smeech? I think his name was Smeech. Yeah, Smeech. And how Jinx fixes her arm because everything around her breaks, but she wanted to be able to fix something. And so she did it for her. And the little nods to like how to adjust and do the little wheel, the slots, reminds me a little bit of Hunter x Hunter, if you know what I mean. And how one of them just sort of played music and Sevika rolls her eyes. The dynamic is very kind of cute in that way. It's heartwarming in a sense that they are able to find each other. And Sevika has never seen eye to eye with Jinx, but she's always had a little bit of a soft spot for her. And I think that's going to develop and progress as these two really only have each other. Also, another heartbreaking parallel to me is in episode 2 in season 1, I kind of mentioned it during the reaction, we have Milo, Clagger, Powder, and Vi hiding from enforcers in a very similar way in locations that may reflect that episode. We have Jinx being searched out and hiding from enforcers. Those enforcers being Caitlyn and her sister. Just like when Marcus searched the last drop for them, so too does Caitlyn, in a way, and they get away. But it's interesting to me, Caitlyn has always had this dynamic in her mind of the two people she looks up to in one way or another, or the two examples rather, of enforcers, Marcus and Grayson. In season 1, she was able to stick to her guns and be Grayson, but her loss and fear of further loss and the darkness that's building inside her, I think she's now leaning more on the Marcus side of things. I think she's giving into that sort of inner darkness, very human darkness. And what happened to Marcus? He was exploited. He was used by Silco. Similarly, I think Caitlyn could be used by Ambessa. But that's a bit of a tangent. Sorry about that. Jinx and Sevika. Yeah, I think there's tons of potential there for a really special relationship. I feel like one that could easily end in tragedy. I don't imagine that this will end, this partnership or this dynamic will end happily at all. But for the moment, I'm happy for them to have each other. And of course, always the caveat, yes, they've done horrible things. Jinx has done horrible things. Sevika has. But they're so human. They have such human depth to them. And the writing is so good, the writing and presentation that is so good that we're able to empathize with people on either side of the divide. You know, there isn't a character in this series who is perfect. No one. I think the vast majority of primary characters have done horrible things in Piltover and in Zaun. But I sympathize and empathize with all of them. And so just like I really feel for what Victor used to be and what he is, just like I feel for Mel and Jace, despite Jace building weapons for a cause that is so destructive, but that he feels is a necessity. I feel that way for Vi as well, for Caitlyn, for her pain. And so I feel that way for Jinx and Sevika as well. And what an interesting dynamic we have forming for the Undercity now. All these council members scrambling. By the way, Smeech has a great design. I love how they sort of play around with his automaton parts. Just really stark personality, great character designs everywhere. Usual Arcane stuff. But now we have a new addition to the Undercity, to Zaun. This savior figure, Victor, and Sevika, and Jinx. And there's civil war in the Undercity, and there's civil war in Piltover. Or rather, I feel like there's an equivalent potentially bubbling. So it's just, oh man, these episodes are build up, but they are such quality, such immense quality. We know what happens in episode 3 of season 1, so episode 3 for this has a lot to live up to. Though I'm not trying to say that it has to be this incredible finale of Act 1. Doesn't have to be. This is its own story, this is its own season, and the aims are different, so don't worry if episode 3 isn't as bombastic and spectacular and gut-wrenching and emotional as episode 3 of season 1, that's totally fine, because this is its own story, and it'll be judged on its own merits. Just comparing, because I like to rank things. But yeah, very focused episode. Pretty much just the Victor plotline, the bits of Singe we talked about, obviously Jinx and Sevika dealing with the aftermath, and then a little bit of Jace, which we've talked about, and the subtext with Caitlyn and Ambessa and Vi. Last thing that's left is Echo and Heimerdinger, and these two together, man, they have this sort of buddy cop thing going on. It doesn't, I think it's important to make note of the fact that a lot of the indolence of Topside, the sort of indolent culture, that the blind spots there that have been seeped into the council are the result of Heimerdinger's negligence. I think that's really important to make note of. But something that's always captivated me about him is his love of science. He loves science, so it breaks his heart to have to tell Victor and Jace earlier in season 1 that they can't pursue these things, but he knows the dangers of it. He knows both sides of discovery. He knows the beauty of it, and he knows the horrors of it. And what I love in episode 7, maybe, is how he sort of gets a bunch of rubbish together and makes this really cool sort of contraption and shows it to a kid. That sort of love of discovery and these magical innovations is why he's a scientist. And we see him in this episode with like a bubble blowing contraption with the kids. I mean, he's in his element. That's what he loves, what he loves to do, and that he's learned you can't just discover and innovate all the time, because there's a downside to this. The more and more you ramp this stuff up, the more and more consequences there will be, and you have to have caution and red tape. Now, of course, throughout season 1, he offers this wisdom, which is important wisdom because we see what it's led to. It's important. He's seen these things. These are lessons that our characters need to take into account that maybe they should have listened to more, but at the same time, he was so oblivious. He was so blind to the world around him. He had no perception of what it meant to Jace to be losing his best friend, what it meant to Victor to see his life draining before his eyes without being able to innovate and do the things that Heimerdinger's been able to. And so he operated from a blind spot, from a place of privilege. And so he wasn't able to, he was able to provide them with the wisdom, but he wasn't able to express it in a way that was convincing because of his lack of empathy. But you see here, his heart is never in the wrong place. He's just oblivious and he doesn't think enough. He isn't aware enough. But here, I think he's perfectly positioned to make a change that's more loyal to the type of person he wants to be. And him and Echo together is great. I love them together. Like I said, it's the only, in this miserable season so far, it's the only bit of light I've really seen so far. Light and lightheartedness and humor. But even that is interrupted by something ominous, as their tree, this symbol of life, tree of life, seems to be diseased, rotting with whatever element was present in the hextech core. It's infected this tree, and that's no bueno, that's bad news, so they need to get to the bottom of it, and through their hilariously sneaky mission, a reflection of Victor and Jason, more innocent times in episode 3 of season 1, they find Jace, who has been sleeping there in that room, who hasn't been at home, probably agonizing over Victor, over everything, which is a good little touch, but heartbreaking. But he's going to look into it for them, and they're going to get to the bottom of this. As for theories about why it's showing up in the Undercity there, I'm not sure. I don't really know. It may have something to do with the Shimmer. There may be some sort of link between Hextech and Shimmer. They're the two equivalents. I don't really know. It is purple. Shimmer's purple. 1 + 1 = 2. I don't know. We'll see where that goes. Sorry for the cut. It's a couple of days after recording this episode, and I'm just now realizing that there are some things I wanted to talk about that I didn't talk about in the discussion, so just going to touch on them. One of them's, the first one is the more major one, which is about Victor. Now, there's obviously the messianic stuff, there's the savior stuff, how he's now established himself in the underground, and how he now sees this idealized version of Sky guiding his actions. We talked about that already, but I also find it interesting, a neat little, or an interesting little touch, is that I think there's an interesting relationship with him and this Skye, this idealized vision of Skye. Skye is someone that Victor essentially, it's a relationship he essentially neglected and only started realizing the value of after he caused her death. I think there's a lot of guilt there, I think there's a lot of regret, and I think the element of human connection that he spurns, I think he's overly trying to compensate by imagining the way that she interacted with him to an extreme degree, as if she would be guiding him to do these sorts of things. And I think this may be guiding him to find some sort of ultimate answer that would lead to prosperity and happiness, and sort of an extreme version of the connection he maybe neglected in her, through helping humanity thrive. But the interesting thing about that is that he's essentially missing the forest for the trees, if that's what's going on here, this sort of compensation, because if he's doing this for the beauty of humanity, to save humanity, etc., he is spurning his own humanity in doing so. It's just a really interesting, raw, imperfect, and a really genuinely written way dynamic here that I think is really interesting and I can't wait to see develop. And in addition, another thing to do with Victor is I don't think this theory works, because I'm pretty sure the showrunners have mentioned or debunked it, because people have theorized about this already. Like, this is a thought I've had, but then people have told me, no, that's not the case, because the showrunners have said no. But basically, Victor has, throughout Season 1, dived deep into the arcane arts. He's been tempted, he's been hypnotized by it. Who knows what magic is capable of in this universe? I think we've only scratched the surface of it. It's a theory I've thought of, and I think it's a common theory that other people have thought of, that Victor could potentially somehow, through some crazy magic nonsense, be the original wizard sage-like person that saved child Jace and his mother, and imbued the feeling of love and inspiration for magic and innovation in Jace. That Victor reflected back onto him the beauty that was the core of their relationship. That is a theory that I think is pretty common, and it's one that I thought of, but again, I'm pretty sure the showrunners have said that's not the case. But I bring it up again here because he's now, like, if you look at his character design, I'm pretty sure the texture of his hands and his limbs are kind of similar to the texture of the mage in episode 2. He also has a staff now, and so did the mage. And Arcane in its visual storytelling, I mean, you never take anything for granted. There are very deliberate things in this story. So I think I just wanted to bring this up, I guess, that this feels like more evidence for that, but I think they might have debunked it. I'm not sure. That might not be the case. But that's just what I've heard through hearsay. Thought I'd bring it up here because, especially the design stuff, he's got this cloak now, the staff, and now that Victor has dived deep into this and been imbued with this arcane magic, who knows what the limits of this are? Who knows if he can manipulate space and time and go back? Because I think a really beautiful thing would potentially be Victor giving Jace the love in magic that Jace and him shared in the first place, that maybe inspired Victor, and in turn planting the seed that inspired Jace in the first place. I think that could be a beautiful crown on their relationship. But we'll see if that happens. And then one more detail that I don't think I brought up during the discussion as I'm going through editing it is that they mentioned that there's, at the end of episode 1, that there's a potential traitor in Piltover that caused, that allowed this sort of attack at the end of episode 1. I don't think I talked about it so far, so it's worth noting. But I think that's about all I gotta say for this one. A fantastic episode again. I really want to watch episode 3 right away, but unfortunately I'm out of time for tonight, so I'll spare my voice and I'll spare my energy for tonight. But man, what a great start these first 2 episodes have been. It's like we never left. I'm adoring it. Every character has such interesting directions that they're going in. The audio-visual presentation, the way that characters have shifted their trajectories, specifically Caitlyn and Victor, while other characters are sort of drifting around, trying to see their place. Jace, Jinx, Sevika, Vi. Though it's also worth noting that both Jinx and Vi have explicitly stated that they are willing to take on each other. So that's definitely going to happen, heartbreaking as it is. But yeah, there's also Echo and Heimerdinger, their roles in this. Whatever the hell Victor's arc will be, how he's become this messiah, this savior, all the stuff that Mel's got to deal with, the council, Ambessa, puppeteering things. Like, this is first class, masterful setup, and I cannot wait to see where it goes. They are firing on all cylinders. No hope, no fears of a slow start in terms of quality. This is first-class television, as you would expect from this team. They've just gone from strength to strength, and we may be witnessing an all-timer, but I don't want to get too ahead of myself. It's just the signs are really promising. Anyways, thank you guys for joining me for episode 2 of Season 2 of Arcane. If you'd like to support me, you can do so on Patreon, and you can also get early access to the next one under the $5 tier, or 10, it's either 5 or 10, sorry, I haven't done this in a while. It'll be available on Patreon, all the information, and full-length reactions, totally uncut, but with a timer that you'll have to sync up, that's available as well for a lower tier. So you can watch my reaction to episode 3 right now if you'd like to. I'm sure it's peak. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next episode. I cannot wait.